Hello, welcome to the new topic. This is a topic on the closing the project. So after the project work is completed and all the deliverables are accepted by the customer, the performing phase of the project ends. The project then moves into the fourth and final phase of the project life cycle, which is called as the closing the project. So this topic discusses the various activities involved in the process of closing the project. So the chapter concepts are actions that should be taken when closing a project, conducting a post-project evaluation, the importance of documenting lessons learned, the need to organize and archive project documents, obtaining feedback from the customer about the project, and early termination of projects is also related to this topic. The learning outcomes of this topic are identify actions that should be taken during the process of closing a project, conduct a post-project evaluation, discuss the value and use of lessons learned, explain the importance of organizing and archiving project documents, obtain customer feedback about the project, and describe situations that could result in early project termination. So this topic is about the project integration management and project procurement management, which are two of the knowledge areas in the project management body of knowledge guide. So project closing actions. So the fourth and final phase of the project life cycle is closing the project as it is shown in this figure. First phase was initiating, then planning, performing, and then last phase was the closing phase. So this closing phase starts after the project work has been completed and the sponsor or customer has accepted the project deliverables. When a project team or contractor completes a project for a customer, they must verify that all the agreed upon deliverables were in fact provided. Such deliverables might include training or procedure manuals, drawings, flowcharts, equipment, a building, software, brochures, a conference, reports, videos, or data. So in some situations, this might be a somewhat formal event in which an automated system satisfies a set of acceptance criteria or passes tests that were stated in the contract. Other projects, such as a weekend of homecoming activities at a university, are completed merely with the passage of time. So the process of closing the project involves various actions, including collecting and making final payments, recognize the and evaluate the staff, conducting a post-project evaluation, documenting lessons learned, and organize and archive project documents. So the activities associated with closing the project should be identified and included in the project baseline plan. They should not be done merely as spontaneous afterthoughts. Final payments. So an activity that must be performed during the closing phase is assuring that all the payments have been collected from the customer. Many contracts include a progress payment clause, which states that the customer will make the final payment at the completion of the project. In some cases, the final payments is a high percentage, for example, 25% of the total project price. Likewise, it should be verified that all payments have been made to any subcontractors, consultants, vendors, or suppliers for any purchased materials or services. Once all payments have been received and made, the project books or accounting records can be closed, and a financial analysis of the project can be made in which final actual costs are compared to the project baseline budget. Staff recognition and evaluation. So an important project closing action is staff recognition and evaluation. Successful projects should end with some type of recognition and celebration. This can range from an informal party after work to a more formal event with speakers from the customer's organization and awards and certificates of recognition for project participants. During the closing phase of the project manager should prepare a written performance evaluation of each member of the project team that mentions how each has expanded her or his knowledge as a result of the project assignment and identifies areas she or he needs to develop further. If a project team member does not report directly to the project manager within the company's organizational structure, the project manager should provide a copy of the performance evaluation to the person's immediate supervisor. A post-project evaluation. Another significant activity during the closing phase is conducting post-project evaluation meetings within the project team or organization that performed the project. So the purpose of such meetings is to review and evaluate performance of the project and to identify what can be done to improve performance on further projects. So there should be two types of meetings: individual meetings and with the team members, and a group meeting with the project team. They should be held as soon as possible after the completion of the project, and they should be announced in advance so that people can be prepared. So the project manager should have an individual meeting with each of the team members. These meetings allow team members to give their personal impressions of performance of the project and what can be done better on future projects. Such individual meetings allow people to speak openly without the constraints of a group meeting. For example, they can mention any problems in working relationships with other team members. Of course, the project manager must assure team members that any such disclosures will be kept confidential. Once the individual meetings with the team members are complete, the project manager can identify some common issues brought up in those meetings. With this information, the project manager can then develop an agenda for a group meeting with the entire project team. So at the group meeting with the project team, the project manager should lead a discussion of what happened during the performance of the project and solicit specific recommendations for improvement. So a sample agenda for such a post-project evaluation meeting is shown in this figure. And in this agenda, these are some of the topics which can be discussed. So for example, the technical performance. In that, what can be discussed is that how did the final scope of the work compare to the scope of the work at the start of the project? Were there many changes to the work scope? Were the changes handled properly in terms of documentation, approvals, and communication? What did the changes have on project budget and schedule? Was the work scope totally completed? Were the project work and deliverables completed in a quality manner, and did they meet the expectations of the customer? Then budget performance. How did the final project actual cost compare with the original budget, baseline budget, and with the final project budget, which included any changes in the scope? So if there was a fixed price contract, was it profitable, or did the project organization lose money? Or if there was a cost reimbursement contract, was the project completed within the customer's budget? Were there any particular work packages that overran or underran their budgets by more than 10%? If so, then why? And what were the causes of any cost overruns? Were the estimated activities costs realistic? Schedule performance. How did the actual project schedule compare with the original schedule? If the project was late, what were the causes? How was the performance on the schedule associated with each work package? Were the estimated activity durations realistic? Project planning and control. Was the project planned in sufficient detail? Were the plans updated in a timely manner or to incorporate changes? Was actual performance compared with the planned performance on a regular basis? Were data on actual performance accurate and collected in a timely manner? Was the planning and control system used on a regular basis by the project team? Was it used for decision making? Risk management. Was the project outcome impacted by the occurrence of any unexpected events? If so, were they identified in the risk plan? Were the high probability and high impact risks adequately identified at the beginning of the project? Were there any risks that should have been but were not identified at the beginning of the project? What risks were identified during the project and that were not identified at the beginning? And why were they not identified at the beginning? So for identified risks that occurred, were the reasonable response plan adequate? Were there any unexpected events that occurred for which there was no response plans? Customer relationships. Was every effort made to make customer a participant in the success of the project? Was the customer asked on a regular basis about the level of satisfaction with the performance and progress of the project? And the stakeholder engagement. Were all key stakeholders identified early? Were these roles and expectations of each stakeholders clear and unambiguous? And like that. Communication, team relationships. Did the team participants in did the team participate in planning the project? Was there a team feeling and commitment to the success of the project? Were there any conditions that impeded teamwork? Communication. Was the team kept informed of the project status and potential problems in a timely manner? Problem identifications and resolution. Were mechanisms in place for team members to identify potential problems early? Did appropriate team members participate in problem solving? And then lessons learned. What worked and what did not? What particular things were done well on the project that helped the project and should be done on other projects? And then recommendations for future projects. Based on the team's discussion and evaluation of the above items, what specific recommendations can be made to help improve performance on future projects? This post-project evaluation team meeting, the project manager should prepare a written report of project performance, including lessons learned and recommendations. So project organizations must be proactive and timely in communicating such post-project reports, excluding any confidential information to key people in the project organization, and ensure that the reports are taken into consideration by project managers and all teams on future projects. The purpose of identifying and documenting lessons learned is to capitalize on the knowledge and experience gained on the project to improve performance on future projects. So the project organization should establish a knowledge base system that includes an easily accessible repository that encourages project managers and teams to retrieve lessons learned and information from previous projects. So the system should organize information so that it is easily retrievable by category or subject of the lessons learned or by keywords. The team should not wait until the end of the project to capture and document lessons learned. It should be done on an ongoing basis throughout the planning and performing phases of the project. This can also help to improve performance during the an important important consideration regarding lessons learned is to ensure that they are documented, communicated, and used by project managers and teams on future projects. One way to do this might be to require it to be an agenda item at the initial kickoff meeting for a new project. So lessons learned can also be a good topic for any internal project management training that is conducted by the project organization. Next is the archive project documents. During project closing, the project team or contractor should ensure that copies of appropriate project documentation are properly organized, filed, and archived so that they can be readily retrieved for future use. For example, the contractor may want to use some of the actual cost and schedule information from a completed project to help develop the schedule and estimated cost for a proposed project. Or if the project involved, say, staging a community festival, the project team should organize all its documentation, including suggestions for improving aspects of the festival for use by the project team that will plan and organize the festival the following year. Some organizations have a standard checklist or index of items to ensure all important project documents and records are retained, including technical, financial approvals, contracts, reports, and so forth. Most documents can probably be saved in electronic format, but in some cases, hard copies may be required. For safety and security purposes, it is also a good practice to retain a backup copy of all documents in a separate archive. As part of or in addition to the documents in the archive, it can be valuable to create a database of common data elements from past projects to analyze and determine if there are trends or correlations that could be helpful in bidding, planning, and or performing future projects. Such analysis might show a tendency to underestimate costs for certain types of activities or materials, for example, or underestimate durations for certain categories of activities. Just as important as having the internal post-project meetings within the project organization is having a post-project evaluation meeting with the customer or sponsor. The purposes of this meeting should be to determine if whether the project provided the customer with expected benefits, assess the level of customer satisfaction, and obtain any feedback that would be helpful in future business relationships with the customer or with other customers. So meeting participants should include the project manager, key project team members, and key representatives of the customer's organization who were involved with the project. So the project manager should schedule the meeting for a time when the customer is in a position to really determine whether the project met expectations and achieved the anticipated benefits. In the case of a project to develop an 8-page color brochure for a customer, a meeting can be held shortly after the final printed brochure is given to the customer, because the customer will know immediately whether the brochure met expectations. However, in the case of a project that supplied a customer with a specialized automated assembly machine expected to reduce the product defect rate from 10% to 2%, it could be several months after the machine is installed before the customer can verify whether the defect rate was reduced. So this time may be needed for the operators to learn how to operate the equipment properly, or for the company to verify a reduction in returned merchandise. If a project to develop a new product had an objective to achieve a sales volume of 2 million units within 12 months after the launch of the new product, the sponsor may not know whether the project of developing and launching the new product achieved its expected benefit until 12 months after the product was launched. Ideally, the contractor or project team should sit down with the customer or sponsor and ask open-ended questions and then listen with an open mind. So this provides an opportunity for customer not only to express their level of satisfaction but also to provide detailed comments about the parts of the project with which they were satisfied or dissatisfied. If the customer provides comments that are critical of the contractor's or project team's performance, the project manager or team should not attempt to argue or debate with the customer. On the other hand, if the customer is satisfied with the project, the contractor or the project team is presented with several opportunities. First, the contractor should ask the customer about any other projects the contractor could do, perhaps without going through a competitive RFP, request for proposal process. So if the customer is satisfied with the brochure, for instance, the contractor should ask if any other brochures, annual reports, or marketing materials are needed. Second, the contractor should ask permission to use the customer as a reference with the potential customers. The contractor may even want to feature the customer in a brochure or on a website, maybe with a picture and a quote or a video stating how satisfied the customer was with the contractor's performance. Another method of getting feedback from the customer regarding satisfaction with the results of the project is through a post-project customer evaluation survey, as is shown in this figure. So the project manager provides this survey form to the sponsor or customer and possibly other project stakeholders to complete and return. So for large projects, several individuals in the customer's organization may contribute to formulating the responses. After receiving the completed evaluation survey back from the customer, the project manager may then want to schedule a follow-up meeting with the customer to obtain more detailed feedback. So when there are multiple customers or end users of the results of the project, it may be difficult to get feedback from them. So for example, after a volunteer group organizes a week-long community festival, how does it get feedback from the people who attended about their level of satisfaction and their suggestions for improving next year's event? Or consider a project in which a new software product was developed. The immediate sponsor is the company's product manager, but the true and end users and customers are the people who eventually purchase the software. So the product manager may be satisfied with the resultant product, but how does the project team determine whether the end users are satisfied? In both of these cases, the community festival and the new software product, the project team may use some type of survey or focus group to obtain feedback from the end users. There may be circumstances, now I'm talking about the early project termination. There may be circumstances that require a project to be terminated before it is completed. For example, suppose a company is working on a research and development project with an advanced material that has certain properties at extremely low temperatures. After some development work and testing, it is determined that further development of the material could cost much more and take far longer than originally thought. If the company determines that the probability is low that further expenditures on the project will yield a successful outcome, then the project will be stopped, even though the company may have several $1 million invested in it. Another circumstance that can cause a project to be terminated early is a change in a company's financial situation, such as if a company's revenues or sales are shrinking, or if the company is acquired by another company. So projects can also be terminated by the sponsor or customer because of dissatisfaction. So for example, if the buyers of a house are not satisfied with the quality of the contractor's work or are frustrated with schedule delays, they may terminate the agreement with the contractor and hire another contractor to finish the project. Similarly, if the government is funding the design and production of new military aircraft and project costs begin to significantly overrun the budget, the government may terminate the contract. So, having a project terminated early by a customer that is not satisfied can really hurt a contractor's business. The contractor may incur a financial loss because of early termination and may have to lay off some of the employees who are working on the project. More important, the contractor's reputation may be damaged. There will likely be no future business from a customer who was not satisfied, and a tarnished reputation could make it difficult for the contractor to obtain business from other customers. One way to avoid early termination of a project due to customer dissatisfaction is to monitor the level of customer satisfaction continually throughout the project and take corrective action at the first hint of any dissatisfaction. Critical success factors. Recognize the project team and celebrate accomplishments throughout the project. Regularly ask the customer about the level of satisfaction with the performance and progress of the project and take corrective action at the first hint that the customer is not satisfied. After the conclusion of a project, the project performance should be evaluated to learn what could be improved if a similar project were to be done in the future. Feedback should be obtained from the customer and the project team. Capture and document lessons learned throughout the performance of the project. Establish a knowledge base of lessons learned and ensure that they are communicated and used on future projects. Organize and archive project documentation and analyze key data that could be helpful in bidding, planning, and or performing future projects. Retain customer evaluation and feedback information that could be valuable in developing proposals for other projects for the same customer in the future. Summary. The fourth and final phase of the project lifecycle is closing the project. An important project closing action is staff recognition and evaluation. Conduct post-project evaluation meetings within the project team or organization with individual team members and a group meeting with the project team to gather team feedback for improved future performance. Identify and document lessons learned to capitalize on the knowledge and experience gained on the project in order to improve performance on future projects. The project team or contractor should ensure that copies of appropriate project documentation are properly organized, filed, and archived so that they can be readily retrieved for future use. And conduct a post-project evaluation meeting or distribute a customer evaluation survey to the customer or sponsor to determine whether the project provided the customer with expected benefits, assess the level of customer satisfaction, and obtain any feedback that could be helpful in future business relationships with this customer or other customers. And the projects may be terminated before completion for various reasons. So this we also discussed in this topic.